Histamine. Many people think about histamine only in context with maybe allergies or spring allergies and pollen. But here's the reality of the situation. And this, by the way, is a viewer question that I am so glad you asked because I think it's an important topic to cover. Histamine intolerance is becoming more and more common. I'm seeing it in the exam room all the time at Center Spring MD. It's becoming so common, it's actually being bundled into an autoimmune disease called MCAS. Mast cell activation syndrome. And what does all that mean? It means the body essentially is pouring out histamine, leaving you itchy, bloated, super uncomfortable, but worst of all, reacting to everything. I've sat with so many patients and we've gone through their food diaries, and sometimes they are perfectly healthy. Like, you can't find fault in anything that they're eating from a health standpoint, or at least what we consider healthy, but they're having these crazy histamine responses. And it took me a few years, but I finally figured it out. This histamine reaction is actually coming from the gut. The gut is damaged, there's leaky gut, there's maybe too much candida in the gut. Again, I talk a lot about these ideas of leaky gut and candida in the videos right here, so you can check those out. That's really the root of what's going on. So imagine going out for a great salad and digging in and enjoying it, only to go home feeling miserable after it. Or maybe you took my advice and you're drinking kefir and kombucha and all these lovely fermented foods that are supposed to balance the gut microbiome, but you end up bloated and uncomfortable and feeling terrible. Well, you're having a histamine response. So I want to share with you some of the foods that do and don't work when you've got an issue with histamine overproduction. All right, let's take a look at this. It's going to surprise you, but I think it's an important one to talk about. What about these guys? Bananas, spinach, dried apricots, and avocados. These are some of my favorite foods. I use spinach and bananas in smoothies. I eat a lot of salads. Avocados, probably one of my favorite things to put in everything to get that healthy fat in. But all of these have one thing in common. They can trigger a histamine response.
No! God, please, no! No!
That's right, leaving you itchy and scratchy, your lips swelling, your stomach bloated, just feeling plain old crummy and miserable. And the foods that trigger histamine intolerance are often some of our healthier foods. And of course, things like alcohol, excessive sugar, packaged and processed foods, including processed meats, also make histamine intolerance worse. And last but not least, here's another fun fact. Leftovers can make histamine intolerance worse. If they're sitting around for more than a day or so, they're actually fermenting and produce a higher level of histamine, making your symptoms of histamine intolerance worse. All right, so those are the bad guys. What about the good guys? Well, take a look. Meat actually is helpful for folks with histamine intolerance. Again, not packaged meats or deli meats, but pure organic meats are actually helpful and can be tolerated for those with histamine intolerance. Eggs are a good one, and then Brazil nuts, another example of foods that work for those of you with a histamine issue. So all of this to say, there are good and bad foods when you're having issues with histamine. Yes, you need to avoid the ones that you can connect the most obvious reaction to, but your starting point is not just avoiding foods. It's really about going back to the gut, repairing your leaky gut, and really getting that histamine level down at its root. Here's another pattern that I find over and over again. Many of my patients with histamine intolerance or MCAS or anything in between actually have candida or an overgrowth of yeast in the gut. So our protocol is typically, hey, let's reduce candida and see if that brings the histamine level down, and in turn gives you more food variety. Nothing's more heartbreaking than really having your ability to eat and the foods you can tolerate continue to narrow and narrow and narrow. I've had patients crying, saying, I can't go on a trip, I can't enjoy a party, there's nothing I can eat. Well, my answer back, know the foods, but also heal your gut. All right, I post new videos every week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys soon.